So for the Portland Trail Blazers, when game planning their offense for this year's playoff series against the Oklahoma City Thunder, the main thing Portland should be doing is looking at last year's debacle against the New Orleans Pelicans. Because although that was a complete disaster, there is a lot to learn from that series that Portland can use to deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder, who is likely to try and exploit Portland in the same way that the Pelicans did. Of course, that is a trapping defensive scheme to get the ball out of Damian Lillard's hands. I made a video last year for my old channel where I looked at a bunch of different problems with the way Portland attacked the New Orleans Pelicans defense, and looking at these clips should be able to show you how we kind of played into the hands of the New Orleans Pelicans and played into their trapping defense. Now this video is from Game 3, so this was after Portland saw a trapping defense during the first two games, and this was a game where Portland should have at least been able to make an adjustment and try and put themselves in a better position, but they did not. The first thing is they set a ton of very high ball screens. A lot of these screens were expected by the defense saw them coming, and were in perfect position to spring a trap. A lot of these screens were way above the arc, with a lot of Portland's offensive players being too far away from the pick and roll action to be able to relieve pressure out of the trap. Here's a screen where Collins is trying to free Dame towards the sideline, which is a perfect position for a defense to trap. It's also away from the three offensive players for Portland, so if New Orleans rotates right, Damian Lillard won't have an outlet pass out of that trap. There's way too many plays like this where Portland was very stagnant offensively. Nobody's moving off the ball, and the defense sees the high pick and roll coming and is ready to trap it. Now Damian Lillard did a very good job of getting this pass out of the trap, but Nurkic overran the passing window. A passing window is essentially a passing lane between two defenders. Nurkic ran past that passing lane and it ended up in a turnover. If Nurkic stayed in that passing lane, he could have made a play. So if Portland is going to run high pick and roll, they need the screener to be able to find the passing window to relieve pressure. This is another high pick and roll that we saw far too much of, with Nurkic almost at half court, trying to screen Dame to go to the corner. If Dame goes to the corner, he's getting trapped, and his only outlet to relieve pressure is going to be Yusuf Nurkic at half court, and that's not going to be able to exploit the trap at all. Or Damian Lillard can reject the trap, which he does, but that leaves Portland in a 4-on-5 situation with Nurkic trailing the play at half court where he's not a threat. Lillard still scores here, but he had to work his tail off just to get a bucket. Another high screen and roll, and the screen isn't even angled well. I would like it if Nurkic was below the defender. Instead, he's way above him and near half court once again. Basically, we saw far too much of this, and if Portland keeps trying to do the same thing where they set high pick and rolls near half court and play into the hands of the trap like that, it'll be disaster. There will be a lot of turnovers, which OKC thrives on creating, and OKC loves fast break points, and that's what those will turn into. Now before we show this play, I need to define what a drag screen is for those who don't know. The drag screen is a screen in transition on the fast break or an early offense where the screener is running next to the ball handler and curls into a screen, into a pick and roll. I will show some footage later showing why drag screens are so effective, and Nurkic sets a drag screen here. However, the floor is not balanced correctly to be able to utilize a drag screen because Damian Lillard has Maurice Harkless and Al-Farouq Aminu right in his path if he uses the drag screen. This drag screen would need to be a little bit more towards the sideline to give Dame more space, or a little bit later where Aminu and Harkless could cut on through before they run this action. The timing of this was just off. However, they can be very effective, and I hope Portland is putting them into its offensive game plan for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Again, this play right here, screens are way too high. A screen freeing Dame to go to the corner and get trapped with his options to relieve pressure near half court, that's not good. Again, Yusuf Nurkic screening near half court, and although this is kind of a drag screen, it's off an inbounds pass and the defense was set. It wasn't in transition or on the fast break. And yes, Dame hit the shot, but it's a very tough shot, and Dame was not getting good looks all series long. If he can't get better looks than this on a consistent basis, Portland is really going to struggle to score the ball. So now let's look at a clip of a video on why drag screens are effective. This is by a channel called By Any Means Basketball. I'll link them down in the description below. It's a very good channel, one of my favorites on YouTube. So I'm just going to let them show some footage and explain why drag screens are so effective.
at his feet. State comes ahead. Leading by 8. Both of these teams trying to get...
So for a team like Portland, who loves to run pick and roll, but in the playoffs, teams really work to take that away, I want to see a lot more drag screens in transition so they can get Dame free off of a pick and roll, so that the defense isn't set and ready to trap off of a pick and roll. Portland hasn't ran many drag screens this season, so I feel like if they really look to do so, and they have their timing right, their positioning right, and they're able to do it effectively, it'll take Oklahoma City by surprise. If the big guy is already far up on the drag screen, then the drag screener can easily slip that screen, and there shouldn't be help defense right underneath him since the defense isn't set yet, and that should free a roller going towards the rim. If the big is back a little too far and they still try and trap, you have Damian Lillard with momentum already built up, attacking a big man who's running towards him. Dame will win that battle, and the help defense won't be ready to rotate behind it. Or you'll get a situation where the big knows he can't get to the trap in time and will sag the pick and roll, and Portland is a lot more effective against a sagging defense when running pick and roll, as Dame is able to use that space to manipulate the big man sagging the pick and roll, and Dame is either able to get to his mid-range, or hesitate and get to the rim, or slow his pace and hit the roller rolling towards the rim. A lot of times you can also get help defense overcompensating for that and open up a lot of great shots for wide open shooters. So Portland's game plan should be a lot less half-court, slow, high pick and roll around half-court, and look for a lot more drag screens in transition. If they do end up stuck in the half court, then I think they should utilize a lot of side pick and roll, which is basically a pick and roll on one side, Dame dribbling towards the middle, and the big man rolling baseline. The reason I like this is because if the defense traps, Dame has an easy pass to the rolling big man who is rolling towards the rim, and when he catches the ball, he'll be very close to the rim. This play is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Nurkic sets the screen and rolls, and he has a lot of wide open space with which to work with. Enes Kanter would be really good catching the ball in this position. While it's still easy to trap, it's easier for Damian Lillard to handle, and it also gets the rolling big man in a much more lethal position to score than when he's setting high pick and roll and he's rolling from half court. Other than that, in the half court, I think Portland needs to really try and use Dame off the ball, running off of screens, a lot like the Warriors used Steph Curry. In the Pelican series last year, they weren't trapping Dame when he was running off of off-ball screens. He was getting open looks like this one. Have CJ McCollum handle the ball up top and have Damian Lillard run off of baseline screens and curls like this. But one thing Portland also struggled with last season was they weren't cutting well at all. In this play, Aminu is spotting up, and that's probably the right move, but he cuts to the middle of the floor right underneath Jusuf Nurkic, which takes away the roll and just bogs up this entire play. One thing Portland has done better this year but didn't do in their playoff series last year is dive baseline. Right here, Aminu should already be cutting towards the rim. Damian Lillard has a passing window to him if Aminu cuts, and Aminu would have a wide open dunk. But instead, he refuses to dive to the rim and instead sits in the corner. This was a big problem I had last year, and Portland has actually done a much better job of improving this. A trapping defense will give up these baseline cuts a lot more often than a more conservative defense. Portland just has to be able to exploit the trap and make these baseline cuts and hit these cutters, as they will be able to get easy buckets off of it. This is another example of a position where Dame doesn't have a passing window to one of his teammates. Pat Connaughton is in the opposite corner, but Dame has no way to deliver him the ball. He's not really directly between the two defenders that are trapping Dame. But Connaughton is a really good athlete and a lob catcher. He should be diving to the rim, or Dame could possibly throw it over the defense for an alley-oop, or where he can deliver a pass through that passing window and Pat Connaughton could possibly have a layup. Instead, Connaughton fades out to the corner. Dame can't get him the ball, ball, so Dame has to try and do something on his own. So those are a few examples of why we struggled in the Pelicans series, and a lot of opportunities that we missed where we could have exploited their defense. I do expect OKC to deploy the same defense, and I know we've struggled in the past, but even guys like Dame have said that they were kind of surprised and weren't really prepared for that type of defense. If Portland is able to prepare for it, I think they have a good chance to exploit it and actually turn it into some very good looks. So in a nutshell, we can't keep running pick and roll from half court. They'll trap Dame and Dame won't have an opportunity to do anything on his own, and the passes out of it will be very tough due to how far away from the rim Dame is. Instead, I'd like to see a lot more side pick and roll where Dame could utilize the rolling big man, rolling baseline, who will have a lot more space with which to work with and will have a chance to catch the ball within 15 feet of the rim. I'd also like to see more drag screens where Dame can build some momentum before he hits the pick and roll, and where the defense probably isn't as prepared to trap that play. And for our high pick and roll, which I still expect we run, we just need guys being able to find the passing window and get in a spot where Dame can actually deliver them the ball, and we need guys that are willing and want to cut baseline for easy layups. This is something that Jake Layman is great at, and hopefully we can do that to exploit the defense. In the end, we have to take care of the ball. OKC really gambles for steals and tries to play passing lanes, so we have to read the defense correctly before we make a pass, as guys like Westbrook and Paul George are guys that spring out of nowhere to be able to get steals. And lastly, OKC plays very physical. We can't get into that mode where we're just searching for fouls and constantly complaining about not getting calls. The refs are going to let Oklahoma City play a physical brand of defense. We've seen it in our 4 games against them this season. And I feel like when we are looking for calls and we are flopping, that's when we get them the least. So instead, we got to focus on our own basketball and try and play a more successful brand this postseason. Let me know if you have any other ideas of how Portland should attack Oklahoma City's defense. I will recap each postseason game, and I'll be looking a lot at how Portland is utilizing ball screens. So anyway, that's all I got for now, Trailblazer fans. I hope the Moda Center is rocking tomorrow. I know you guys will show out as a fan base, and I'm very excited to try and pull out this win in Game 1. So that's all I got for now. This has been Tori. Peace out. Go Blazers.